but it's not so much, you can't attach yourself to the goal. You've got to attach yourself to the process.
Mm-hmm.
And the process could be a week, a day. It could be 50 years from now.
Well, how about this? Let's tie this back in. We've been talking about manifestation. We've been talking about vision boards. We've been talking about, is a happy marriage on your vision board?
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is your first time here. We are Old Guys Still Rock. And I promise you, if this is your first time here, this is the best podcast that you will or have ever listened to. I am Blair Armstrong of Team Armstrong, Coldwell Banker, located in the beautiful Coachella Valley. I am a global luxury specialist in the world of residential real estate out here. Do not know where Coachella Valley is basically between, or like the world of Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, Indio, Rancho Mirage. If you've heard somewhere there, that's the Coachella Valley. We have a bunch of great golf courses out here, clinking in my ears, so it's driving me crazy a little bit. And then on my left, possibly your right, the co-host of the show and a very good friend of mine for almost 30 years, Brent Wright of Brent Wright Incorporated, man with many different hats, from detail shops to body shops to him and his wife just opened up a wellness center. Man of owns multiple properties, investment properties, and is very payroll companies on top of that. But one thing that he's really coming into his own, and he's starting to help more and more people. So hopefully when you watch this podcast, it flips something into you. And if you have more questions or want to peel back the onion more, he's also really, really good into business coaching. And he's really, really good into personal coaching. So again, if you kind of want to check out who he is, there's 83 other episodes that you can go back and look. Who's Brent Wright? Who's Blair Armstrong? Why are these guys on here? Why should I listen to them? And I think there's be a lot of questions that you get answered. And just really check us out. And believe it or not, everything that we have on here has a golden nugget in it, and everything has a common thread. But if we'll just keep going, I can just keep going on soapbox. I feel like I'm an advertisement. So I'm going to stop right there. We're going to get right into it. How are you doing, my dude?
Good. Since we're old, we got to talk about the weather. It's the rules of the road.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a balmy 42 degrees at the most, I think, and foggy today. And there's for about the last week, there's been a weather advisory alert for air quality because we're just socked in right here in the valley. Layer of fog, capped.
And just as so stuff is like
you can't see 20 feet in front of you when you're driving down the road. Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we have sandstorms, you're having a fog storm.
Yeah,
which
pretty
is
much.
Not good.
Right now it's 34 and freezing fog. So that's fun.
That's just
good times.
Not good at all, man. Not good at all. Well,
other than that, it's good. Things have been oddly working. And I say that seriously. So things have been oddly quiet in business. I don't know if it's been oddly quiet for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people are having trepidations about, what's going on in the world and are basically kind of just shutting down. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people are just kind of just pulling in, not just financially, but like emotionally, kind of emotionally disconnected. People are just disconnecting. I don't know if it's the upcoming, what's coming up next week. I don't know if it's the fact that we've had like not one complete week in the last 4 or 5 weeks due to the holidays or just what it seems different than any other year. It seems oddly quiet. People seem to be having, and I know I'm kind of like floundering here for words because I'm just trying to say the kind of the perspective is that I believe people are just struggling emotionally right now and mentally.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, you're going back to the holiday season. I just think there's been one tragedy after another from the weather that we had, or actually we didn't have it. I didn't have that, but the weather back east, North
Yeah.
Carolina and Asheville, those guys are still going through it. They kind of been forgotten a little bit. I'm not going to lie about that. They're still struggling. There's people living in tents back there. Obviously, that went down and up and down the eastern seaboard. A couple of years ago, we had the Maui fires. They're still struggling.
I still have clients that are financially struggling there because
Yeah,
the tourism hasn't come back, right?
it's
So,
horrible. It's horrible over there. We just had some massive fires over in Malibu and the Palisades over here. Um, there's there's a lot of uncertainty. Um, don't want to get. I just think there's some reality coming that which we talked about, that there's no white horse. I think we talked about this a couple episodes. There's not what we expected to happen from administration, and it could be past, present, or whatever, that they're going to take care of us. And I just think this is my feeling. I With the way that things are handled, it's becoming more and more evident. It's up between me, you, our
yeah.
followers on here, so on and so forth, to really pull through. And I say that for the reason of the amount of businesses that have, like, okay, Palisade fires happen. We're not that close to the North Carolina, so I don't know that. We weren't that close to Maui, but I do know with my brother how that came out to it. But all these people that are doing donation systems to, getting clothes, to food, to whatever. Um, it's good to see, and I actually, in a roundabout way, I kind of really like that, because it's breaking down barriers: who was right, who's left, who you voted for, who you didn't vote for, whatever. But it's really coming neighbor to neighbor and really getting back into a community aspect. So
And that's what
that's
we promote here
what
is
we promote,
building and helping
right?
community, right? And so
Right.
that's our whole process. And
Yeah.
so a lot of our subjects align
Right.
with building community and not being divisive and not participating in divisive culture and things like that. But we've got a pretty interesting topic today that's sort
Yeah.
of along those lines, but more takes you deeper into who Brent is and who Blair
There is,
is,
right.
and decisions we made, and how they're affecting us later in life, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, today we're going to talk about being married later in life. You and I were both married younger,
mhm,
and then we kind of took a massive sabbatical in marriage
mhm.
after
Yep, yep.
decisions were being made. Um, uh, Chrissy and I are coming up on 8 years of marriage, even though I've known Chrissy since college, which is kind
Mhm.
of crazy how that, met way back in 89, 88, 89. And life took different paths. I mean, we can get into how that went too, but all of a sudden, we're coming on to our 8 years of marriage in March, and it's just a different vibe. And then, you know, you got you're coming on, 6 years, seven,
So 17, so 7. Yeah.
7. Okay. Yeah. So anyway,
We
with
got
that,
married on 7/7/1/17, so it's the same backwards and forwards.
so you're actually coming on 8 too,
Yeah, yeah. So,
just a
yep,
couple months after mine. So yeah,
yep.
there you go. So the purpose of this is that we're going to really start peeling back, and this would probably be a couple episode podcast, because it goes on to it, is that there are pieces of baggage that both sides bring in, especially when you've been single. Now yours is a little different from mine. Chrissy and I are a little bit more seasoned in life, in the age number.
You're only 4 years older than me, buddy.
Yeah, I know, but I'm still more
Yeah.
seasoned than you. And and April's a little bit younger, right? And so it's just there's
Yeah.
just different things that you have to. And one thing that I've still going through it, and I'm this is a process, just like yourself becoming a better person, but there's a process of learning how to, okay, when you're single and you're dating, it's kind of like my way or the highway. And if you don't like the way to do it, then I'm just going to disregard you or whatever, and I'll find somebody else that listens to me. When you make that commitment to somebody to get married, and all of a sudden things start getting real, you have a lot of stuff that may have worked with dating, as in boyfriend girlfriend, that doesn't work in marriage.
Well,
Right?
your processes change, right? And
Absolutely.
your delivery has to change, and the dynamic changes.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's a little bit more 180-degree than yours.
Okay.
So I was retired when I met April.
That's true.
I had just sold a business for a plethora of money and just started buying some houses and started a couple more businesses and kind of tinkering and basically checking out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and having a bonfire every day and riding my Harley wherever I wanted, taking 6 or 8 weeks to ride across the United States and back. I didn't have a care in the world. I was literally when I met April, I was literally weeks away from going and getting a vasectomy and never having kids.
Wow.
So my whole, I mean, 80 some episodes, you guys have
Right.
seen and heard kind of what my life is,
Right.
and the difference between that. It's a huge disparity. And so, you know, with our followers and listeners, by the way, thank you guys for listening, following us, sharing the show. Some folks can probably relate to this, even if they're marrying somebody of similar age. But later in life, everything changes. You're merging, you know, you're not just merging dishes and furniture. It's you're merging hates, hangups, anxiety, processes, procedures, everything. Like everything that you do, your morning routine is going to change, right? Every piece of that changes. And so for me, it was a big mindset shift. April will tell you it's a point of contention with her still when she tells the story. But my house was like a national forest. You pack it in, you pack it out. Nothing stays. If it stays longer than a day, it goes in the trash or it goes in the lost and found.
Yeah.
There's it's just it was I set some parameters up and some rules in regards to my life. I didn't really want to let anybody in. I didn't let anybody in for 13 years. Although I did have girlfriends and I did uh, head towards marriage a couple of times, uh, it never it never came to fruition. Likely because I sabotaged it in several different ways. Because again, you draw lines in the sand, right? Because you're afraid that things are going to go sideways. And I will tell you that that was the biggest detriment to myself. Uh, Obviously God has a bigger plan for me. None of those things came to fruition because I was supposed to land with April. But the bigger picture is that I stepped on my foot so many times to try to protect myself, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
you know, from whatever I felt like it was going sideways or whatever it would end up. But yeah, it was really a I don't know, self deprivation. It felt like self protection at the time, but it was, outside looking in, probably others would consider it self deprivation.
Yeah, man. I think I hear what you're saying there, because I mean, you definitely trigger stuff when you come in and you set it. We talk about this a lot of guys building silos. Okay, I was in this relationship, so I got hurt, so that's not going to happen again. So
Mm-hmm.
now when I get in this new relationship, this silo is already built, and I will be with you, but you're only going to get so deep because I'm not going to let you in. Basically, which
Yeah,
you in different words, what you're saying.
100%.
Because I was the same way with this. And they're like, okay, I had growing up, this is, it's family first, relationship second.
Mhm.
And then when you get married, I ideally of what you're supposed to do, and it's a lot harder for guys because especially when you're coming, if you're being married later in life, or if this is a second or third marriage, those silos are still being built, and if you do not break those silos down, and again, when I'm talking to you about this is my experience. So
Yep.
you may have this experience, you may not have this experience, and Brent and I will have different ones as it he said on here. But the longer that you keep those on, the harder it is for you to gain the wisdom from the other person in that marriage. A lot of battles, it's like, no, this is the right way to do it because I did this, this, and this. And the other person's like, no, this is the right way to do it because I did this, this, and this, and this. And all you're saying is it becomes a pissing match once in a while. If you don't learn how to communicate. And there's days that I'm really good at it. And there's days and most of the days that I'm not really good at it because I'm just so scared. I think what you said was really great. There's times that you just get scared. It's like, I do not want to lose my masculinity. And I don't want to lose that alpha male feel that I'm supposed to be the leader in the family. But we also talked about this in past episodes too. Sometimes you don't lead from the front. Most of the times you should lead from the rear. Be examples, but don't be afraid to take other examples from other people because
Well, it's
there's
not
wisdom
leading
in
from
that.
the rear, it's leading with a servant's heart,
Right.
right? So you can't expect anybody to do anything without you doing it.
Right.
You can't expect your wife to serve you without you serving her first. You have to lead
Perfect.
by example, right?
Perfect.
To,
Yeah.
to clarify that, as men, we are supposed to lead. We are supposed to be the tip of the spear. We're the first in and the last out, and we're the bloodiest.
Yeah. Yeah. And people like to twist this part when you talk about women have their role, and those roles are constantly changing. Sometimes they do have to be the leader in that relationship, whatever it may be at that time. They have to be the wise person in that time, but it's also again is to is to learn to protect and do things and making sacrifices. And I'm still learning this. So just like, gosh, talking about this right now is like, holy Moses. Okay. There's a lot more work for me to get done, even though I'm year 8 of marriage. I could be a lot better husband, and we talk about it, but there's sometimes that we get lost in the journey, and you get pulled back to that old way, right? Get pulled back to doing things what worked in the past, and it may have worked in the past, but it's definitely, and you think it's going to work now in the future, but past the past, right? You're
Well,
not looking in the
it
rearview mirror.
likely didn't work in previous
Right.
relationships, which is why you don't have them anymore, right?
Yeah,
And
that's good.
so, I mean, strategically, like, simple things are came to be an impasse. Like, what's this set of silverware?
Right.
Well, those are my good silverware. I wouldn't take those camping. We're throwing those out. What?
Right. Wait.
Trigger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah.
stop. Or the all the car photos and Harley photos and stuff up on the wall. Can we redecorate? I
No.
don't know who this we person is, but that stuff ain't moving.
No, you did this too. It's a big heart. When you and April got married, you had your own house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was your house,
Yeah.
right? I worked hard for it. I paid for it. I, I, I painted the color that I wanted to. I put the furniture that I really like, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
some comes in, I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. We're changing that. We're doing like, wait the minute. This is not what's going on here. This is my domain, not your domain. And by the way, when I'm saying that is the wrong idea to have.
Yeah. 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 Well,
So,
that's why we're talking about this, because the
right.
people, our listeners and followers, um, mostly are folks of our age group, right?
Uh-huh.
And some of them we've talked to them and had them on, and some of them aren't married again.
Mhm.
Some of them are in new relationships. Some of them are in the middle of this mess that we're talking about today, or
Right.
just starting it.
Yeah, I know some people that they're not married but in relationships. If they, they're in serious relationships, but they both have different places to live.
Yeah.
It's like a safety net. Well, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go back here, and that's
Well,
fine with Danny.
the guy that's isn't we had him on Purple
Hot
with
Purple Energy.
yeah.
Yeah,
What's
it's
that?
Steve Rigler.
Yeah. So isn't he in the middle of getting married and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
he just got
Yeah.
engaged. They went to El Salvador. Lori
Right.
Osha, she's a big follower of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was some stuff. I'm sure some relationships there, and it took a little bit for them to get to it. But
We ought
he
to
just
have
came on.
both of them back on to talk about this subject. Would be super cool.
So Lori and Steve, I know Lori will be watching this. So Lori, if you feel like you want to express your journey or share your journey of how everything came to fruition with you and Steve and the trials and tribulations and the successes that you had, we would love for you to have that. Anybody that's
Yeah.
watching this, I would love to have your comments of getting married in life or getting married late in life, or maybe it's your second marriage, or maybe you're in a long-term relationship older and you're like, I don't know if I can get to that next level because my past marriage was not great. And I'm scared to get back into it. And I like just to keep everything separate. Um, that really ties into life as in general of, are you committed? And to me, people say, well, I don't need to be married to be committed. I think there's a different
Mhm.
level. I think there's a different level of commitment than being in a relationship. And we could have this debate back and forth. Um, it comes down to faith to me. Uh, God gave us marriage for a reason, and it's not always easy. Sometimes it's extremely difficult, but it makes not only
Well,
me better.
52% of marriages end in divorce today. It's
Yeah.
up from 48.
Well, it's just because it's so easy, dude. It's just nonchalant.
Right.
It's not a work. It's not the process. And again, I've still going through the process. I've been through the process. I've been to the verge of like, this is just not working. And Chrissy and I to this day, without God, there's no way in God's green earth that we're still married. But it was more of a commitment, not only to each other, but a commitment to God. And there's still struggles that we go through to today, but it's learning to accept like, yeah, you're right. I process it a little bit different than she does. I know that she can sit there and say, well, I'll tell him things and he really doesn't comprehend. She tells me stuff. I have to take a moment and like maybe a moment, meaning 1, 2, 3 days. It may take 2, 3 weeks. Whatever that moment is, but have to make adjustments. I will say, going over the last couple of weeks, making a commitment to what we are with business, there's been some clarity of reading, getting back into reading, and 5 critical tasks that you have to do every day. There's stuff that I'm like, okay, I can still become better and make adjustments along the way. And that's really where it's, I don't want to call marriage I don't want to call it a business, and I'm trying to find the word for it, but it is an ultimate commitment. And I want to go back to me saying, I know I'm rambling, it's that it's a commitment to God. And when God has given you everything over and over and over again, the gift of finding that special person that will be with you to the end of time, and you have to work on it. It's just a different level of commitment. And I don't have the words for that right now. Maybe
Well,
you can help me out with that.
I got a couple things for you. So first off, it's finding someone that will put up with your crap.
Yeah.
Really, is the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's just and you can put up with theirs. We all bring garbage and baggage into everything. Try this dynamic, however, and some of you may be able to relate to this. Maybe not on this level, but I was a junior in high school when April was born.
Mm. Mm.
So we don't listen to the same music. We haven't read the same books. There is a dynamic that is just completely different. She is, however, wise for her years and offers me a perspective that I haven't seen before in a lot of situations. Her delivery has gotten exponentially better at figuring out ways to modify my behavior. I mean, I've talked about it in several episodes before, just about wearing a ring. She baffled me with data. She distracted me with data. I love data. I love numbers. I love to know, like she's like, well, wouldn't you like to know how many hours of sleep you get and your oxygen level and all the cool fun stuff? Try this ring on and see how it works. Because I detest wearing any jewelry or rings. You see, I don't wear anything,
I feel you.
and so it's been a struggle. She's like, well, you're not wearing a wedding ring. It's not the wedding ring. It's not it's, you know, in my industry, when I work on vehicles or when I'm running a chainsaw or when I'm running an excavator, I, I've heard the horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's hand gets caught on something and he
Mm-hmm.
gets sucked into the machinery, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
it rips his finger off and all these things. And so it's just another layer of trepidation and just being, bottom line, being scared of sometimes your own shadow, right? And so, part of this is getting later married later in life is and putting that off. I mean, I put it off. Our son was almost 2 years old before we got married. My daughter
Mm-hmm.
was almost 4.
Mm-hmm.
We did everything backwards because of me.
Well, yeah, let's stop there for a second because that becomes a very easy excuse. Like, well, I'm committed to her. We have financial agreements, so on and so forth. Blah blah blah. We're committed, and but you had an out, right? You had an
Mm-hmm.
out, and that's what I found myself with. It's like, okay, when you're dating, you have an out. If you don't like it, you can kick rocks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's still a marriage mindset. You see these guys 10, 15 years. Oh, we just, especially in the world of entertainment. Oh, we were married 10, 15 years, and they're like, okay, we're getting divorced. Well, where's the commitment? Don't get married just to get married.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work on it. And again, if when Chrissy watches this, I know that I'm going to get a bunch of comments on it. That's fine, but that's just but I
Good.
just it's fine. But we always call this therapy Thursdays, and this is a little bit of therapy today. But there's so much more room for me to be better as a person, and when you start realizing it, it scares the holy heck out of you. Like, oh my gosh, how did you get to here, and how are you going to get over to here? Because this is where you want to be over here, but you're still. So there's this thing, and then then and maybe you guys will relate to this, there's a little bit of, I'm just going to dig in my heels and this is the way it's going to be because I'm sick and tired of giving. What the hell is that going to do for anything that you do in life?
Yeah.
You
When we
know,
talk about silos, we have a
right?
big subject, and it's been very common thread about not being in a silo, but yet we continue to place ourselves in silos
Yeah.
in our relationships, and even in your marriage. I bet you probably still silo. It's just a habit. It's a consistent habit, So we become, as we get older, we become very set in our ways and very consistent, and that's how we got to be successful in the ways that we've been successful.
uh-huh.
And so we're like, well, it worked over here. Why won't it work here?
How, let me say this to you. Like you and I could tell each other what to do, right? Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you need to do this, you did this. But when it comes from your spouse, sometimes you're like, dude, you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But they do. Like, and then the day is like, okay, you see something like, oh, dang it, man, you're like so right, and so
Try
I,
this. The most profound statement ever made was when we were sitting at the vet clinic and we'd gotten a new animal, and they asked what the animal's name was. And the lady writes it down. We tell her, the lady writes it down. April tells her. And then she puts the last name right. And April looks over at me and she said, well, it appears everybody in the house has your last name except for me.
Oof. Oof.
And your heart sinks, right? Because your
Ah,
job, right? And your job in a relationship is to make sure that other person feels safe and appreciated and valued. And that just wind out of the sails. Now you're like
yeah.
Tommy. Now you're like Tommy Boy sitting in the middle of the pond with no
Yeah.
wind, right? Can't go anywhere.
For sure, dude. For sure. Yeah, it's
That changed my mind.
wow. Yeah, there's just so much wisdom every day, and there's so much clarity. And the more, I go back to this book that you asked me to pick up, and by God's grace, we got it to, the four agreements, and
Yeah, yeah.
and you obviously be impeccable with your word. Um, one thing is like, no matter what people, don't let what people say about you affect you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is just do your best every day and being in that moment. And then one thing, we're going through, I have, for those of you who are looking for like some visualization and stuff like that, there's an app called Headspace.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things you said, and it's like, okay, we have goals. We may have a goal to have a perfect marriage, or a really good marriage, and we learn how to communicate, or it could be in business, whatever it may be that your goal is for 2025. But it's not so much, you can't attach yourself to the goal. You've got to attach yourself to the process.
Mm-hmm.
And the process could be a week, a day, it could be 50 years from now.
Well,
But
how about this? Let's tie this back in. We've been talking about manifestation. We've been
mhm,
talking about vision boards. We've been talking about, is a happy marriage on your vision board?
right, because it's
Is
part of
a
the process, right?
is a happy marriage part of your manifestation for 2025?
Mm-hmm.
Did you make a plan to include that in what you're trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
Because all other things are superficial if you don't have the basis for your life outlined and defined.
Yeah, if you can't, again, over the last 15 days that we've been really like full on into this with journals and stuff like that, you can't, um, if you can't make a marriage work, you're never going to get any type of relationship to work, period. And there's just work in every single process to it. Now I have to say, it's not, I know that Brent and I are talking about what we're doing. It does have to come from both sides. Um, so there has to be some give and take in there, but there's going to be days that you're going to be, Chrissy always says this, there's days that she's going to be 80% and I'm going to be 20%. And there's days that I'm going to be 80%. She's going to be 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to, and when the days that you're 20%, that's the hardest part of being in that role, especially for males, because you're not leading you're leading in a different way. When
You
you're
feel like you're
when
failing,
you're
right?
feeling you're failing, but you're leading in a different way. But there might, hopefully, I'm still learning on this. Hopefully, there's some vulnerability that comes into that, um, that makes you look at things, what was given to you or was said, or maybe you got your ass chewed on something you did stupid in the relationship. That you take that and like, yep, that's that's I got called to called to Jesus on that one,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to make some adjustments because that's not who I want to be. And there may be some triggers from the past relationships that you've had, maybe some triggers from the way that you were raised, that the way your household is. Again, whatever that was in the past, again, learning on this too, whatever you witnessed in the past, that were past relationships, uh, the way that you grew up, that's there. Your marriage is now, and it is work every single day. and there's going to be a lot of wins, and there's going to be an ish ton of failures. But hope to God, as in everything that we do, is that, okay, I lost that day. How do I win tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it's just.
So when you're younger, correct me if I'm wrong, I felt this way, but I felt like I was a little bit more distracted with just trying to survive. And I was more malleable, and I was open to change and open to growth and open to suggestion, if you will. And I think as we get older, we become more set in our ways. And then when you bring somebody else in, you are not as open and malleable and open to suggestion and change. And that is the real struggle about getting married later in life.
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest issue with all relationships and marriage is, I was raised with a narcissistic parent. This will probably make some people cringe a little bit, um, but that's just the way I was. And so when when you take that in subliminally, or just like mentally, and you really don't,
Mm-hmm.
or you're not aware of it, that really exudes out into a relationship, which is why I've had a lot of relationships fail for that reason. Going back to, it's my way or the highway, and if you don't like it, get the f out. I'm going to run you over.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way anything should be. And there's a lot of times still that comes out of me, and it's gross. It's not right. But the hard part about that is, even though that I'm telling you that I know that that's coming out to it, it's embarrassing to even admit it, and then to cower back and like, dude, I really effed up on that. I need to go apologize. That's been the hardest hurdle for me, is actually apologize for it or admit that I was wrong in that. And again, whoever, this is peeling back the onion, guys. So
Mm-hmm.
this is not just about Blair. So we're hoping that when you're watching this, that some of this hits home. It takes a lot, especially again, being married later in life, or being in a relationship later in life, second or third marriage, or the 15th different relationship that you've been into it. There's some ish that you're going to have to let go, and it's not fun. It's not fun a lot of the times,
Yeah.
but find out how that happened. And I think with visualization, with some meditation, with some reading, and there's just so much great knowledge out there. Having this type of forum with
Mm-hmm.
guys, two guys that have been broken and won, and then broken again and won, and then broken again, and that it's just ebb and flow of winning and losing. Um, those are the type of things, but that are going to help you be better. But at the end of the day, the way that I look at it, and I think Brent looks at it the same way, it's God, my wife, and then the kids are after that. And then
Yeah.
sometimes
Well,
it doesn't look
it's
that way, but
yeah.
that's
So
the way it is.
it's got to be God, yourself, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you got to take care of yourself too. Then your wife, then your kids, and then everything else. So I'm going to give you, as you call it, a golden nugget. So we're all in sales, right? I mean, you're in sales, I'm in sales. A lot of our listeners are in sales. Even if you're not in sales per se, if you're a business owner, or if you are interacting with the public in any way, usually you have like some sales perspective or process. So this is not my golden nugget. This was given to me a number of years ago through a church based class that I took on how to be a good husband. So I took that class when I was single, right after my first divorce. I was the only single guy in the whole room. Everybody else was in there struggling to save their marriage, and I was in there trying to learn how to save my next marriage. Different mindset. And the guy says, and he singled me out. He said, "You're a salesperson." I said, "Yep." He goes, "Why wouldn't you treat your spouse like your best customer?"
That's a good one.
That kicked me in the.
I just kicked me in the nuts, dude.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
tell you that right now.
yep.
That is 1,000%.
So would you go into your best customer's business and just light into them? Would you go into your best customer's business and talk down to them? Would you go into your best customer's business and draw lines in the sand and say, if you don't do this, we're done? Would you fire your best customer by no fault of their own? Or would you threaten to fire them? Because that's really what happens, right? So you have this argument, discussion, heated discussion, whatever it is, and everybody picks sides, usually your own, because that's human nature. And then you become defensive and you start building walls. And then you're like, if you're not going to participate on my level, we're done. I'm done with this. Would you go into your best customer's business and say that? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
But yet we'll go home and do that. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm calling myself out here because I've done this.
Yeah. A lot.
Probably more times than I can count.
A lot.
So,
dude,
as you, yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, as you move into a relationship, if you're an older guy, older gal, and you're listening to this and you move through into a new relationship, and whether they're the same age or younger, the dynamic has to change in the way that you deliver your messages, the way that you handle your actions, and the way that you have to make a cognitive and concerted effort every day to change the way that you deliver your communication and every piece of it.
Yeah. So this is where we talked about multiple parts of this. I think that's we stop here, but this is where I want you guys who are watching this, and I want you to give us comments or questions that we can bring into next week, and then we can read them, and then we'll work through them together. I think there is a lot of good stuff. This is kind of the open of what Brent and I have gone through so far. There's a lot more to this. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
We have another 3 or 4 episodes really that we could get on this, but this is where we need you as our subscribers or your first time listeners or your people that got given this episode because one of your friends or spouses gave this to you, is write down some of the struggles you have of having later on relationships and some of the successes that you've had, so we can get this communication going. Again, the more insight, the more wisdom, and that's what we have. Why we have community is to share this wisdom. And I think there's a lot of good things that you can learn from what Brent and I just said, but there's a lot of great things that you, the listener, subscriber, or new follower can really give us. So give us some insight. What have you gone through or what you're struggling with in your relationships, especially with later on in marriage, or later on, maybe you're having maybe you're older and have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Older meaning over 50, 60 years old type of thing. We really want to understand that dynamic and help other people maybe get rid of some roadblocks and make a better commitment and open up that suitcase a little bit and learn how to share it. Because sometimes there's some cool stuff in that suitcase that you didn't know you had anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, any final words for you, my dude?
Dude, we just barely scratched the surface of this. This is a big, deep truckload of stuff. So
that's a ripple effect on a lot of different things, but this is the core of it, right? This is the core
situation. Yep, exactly. And just for me, as always, this type of discussion is how you go make a damn difference. Right? Because this is going to impact you not only globally, but locally in just in your little sphere, in your house, in your relationships, in your business, in your community. This type of discussion is not fun sometimes, but this truly will make a damn difference.
Yeah. Got to be better. Got to be better every day. All right, guys, we really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I think we're at episode 85 today.
Yeah, 85, I believe.
85 today. If you haven't, is this your first time here? If someone shared this show with you, do me a big favor. 2 things. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, but most of all, share the freaking show. You know, that's it. This is how we're not, it's not just us sharing insight. It's how we get better. It's how you're going to get better. It's how our community get better. And with all of this stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, and we're trying to find community, maybe this is your platform to find that community and to get your voice out there and do some different things. So we're trying to be better every day, but we need you to help us become better. So share the show, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. But until we see each other next week, stay safe, but most of all, God bless. Have a great, great day.